Hey everybody. So I'm excited today. I've had the great opportunity to talk a lot about something that we don't discuss. It's called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia refers to the muscle loss that occurs. Hi. So I am going to have Emily, who is actually one of my trainers at the gym locally. I'm going to have her hop on so we can talk all about muscles.
Hi,
Hey, how you doing, friend?
doing well. How are you?
Hanging in there, hanging in there. I'm so excited about our discussion today.
I know, me too. Obviously, becoming of this age, it's been on the forefront of all my studies and just kind of all my research and everything like that. So I feel like now I'm just inundated with it. But yeah,
So I'm not quite perimenopausal yet, but I'm
yeah.
like, what do I need to do to prepare? And obviously I talk to my clients all day long about perimenopause and hormones and weight management and muscles.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to bring you on to one, introduce my audience to you because I am proud of the work that we do
Yeah.
together. And then hear a little bit about your genius and like the things that you are learning about muscle wasting or sarcopenia.
Yeah. So, obviously, there's been sort of the myth that has since been dispelled that just ipso facto, as you age, you're going to lose muscle mass, your metabolism's going to decline, all these things. We have now since dispelled that. One thing that we're realizing is it's not so much the fact of aging, it is the fact of the lifestyle change is why we're getting that decrease in metabolism, that decrease in lean muscle mass, things like that. It's because if you look at your children, they're playing all day. If you look at your typical, 40, 50-year-old, they're sitting all day. So it's not just the number on, your the candles on your cake, it's the fact that you have now changed your lifestyle. That is wonderful news because that means that we can intervene and do something to combat that. Throughout the perimenopausal and postmenopausal period, things that we do know is, if without intervention, you will lose muscle mass, which will mean a decline in metabolism and an increase in visceral fat and that abdominal fat, which is a big complaint of women in this period. How we can combat that is increasing our lean muscle mass. And so the way we do that, quite easily is to increase our strength and resistance training. Now, one thing that is a caveat of that is, I think something that is sort of inherent in America, if you will, is that we always think like more is more, harder is harder, harder is better, all these things. What we do have going against us is that rise in cortisol as we go into this period. And so when we are constantly taxing and stressing the body, cortisol is a good thing, but it's a good thing in ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys and a temporary spike with, a decrease. We don't want to maintain that high cortisol state. So, a lot of times as, especially women, we enter this period, we think, well, I probably should just work out more. It's probably what I should do, or I used to work out, I used to do 2 days in high school. So maybe if I do that now, the thing, one, we're not then that we do have a hormonal change and we are more susceptible to that cortisol at this stage in our lives. So those exercises, it puts you on a negative spiral because you're thinking, I should exercise more, I should exercise harder. When actually, in this, again, this stage of life, that's doing a disservice to you and it's keeping that cortisol elevated. Well, what does that elevated cortisol do to our body? It is the perfect environment for that storage of fat. So we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot doing all these HIIT classes and trying to do HIIT training for 60 minutes and all these things. And well, I only went 4 days last week. So maybe if I go 7 days, that's the ticket. And it is very counterintuitive. And I don't blame the people in this stage. It's just kind of the messaging we've been receiving for so long. And it's also the thought, if it worked then, it should work now. That is not true. So then what do we do? What do we do different? Well, one thing is, again, we add in that strength training. We don't go into that HIIT state for 60 plus minutes. true hit, if you are truly going to your max out, we're talking like max efforts of a minute followed by a rest, and the total time period of this work rest is, we're talking, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We are not talking 45, 60 minutes, because at that point it's just exhaustion that's making you feel tired. It's not your exertion, because we can't do that. And so you think, oh, you leave out there, you walk out that that Orange Theory or F45 or something like that, and you walk out and you are sacked. And the truth is you are, but you're also walking out in an elevated cortisol state that's going to stay with you for a long time, and it's going to shoot yourself in the foot and sort of undo the efforts that you're trying. So when we talk about sarcopenia and this natural muscle wasting as we age without intervention, is again, combating that is with strength training. And when we talk about strength training, we don't want those 2-pound weights, things like that. We want something that truly challenges. One thing that is more and more coming to light about the perimenopausal state is, way back in the day, we used to think that menopause was hot flashes. And that was it. It was just hot flashes. That's it. Deal with it. Move on with your life. We now know that we have estrogen receptors in literally everywhere. Your eyeballs, your brain, your GI tract, everything in your body has estrogen receptors. So how estrogen works in the bellies of our muscles, if you will, is it is part of that contractile process of the muscles that build it. So as we decrease in that estrogen, the receptors aren't getting hit with estrogen as much. So how do we combat that? We have to increase that external load to fire that contractility to get the same muscle activation that we got before, because again, we have decreasing circulating estrogen, and so we have to add that external load that truly will now affect the muscle to get that contractile, which is how you're going to build your muscles, how you're going to build your lean muscle mass, how you're going to maintain your metabolic activity, things like that. So again, when we talk about strength training, it needs to be something that challenges you, and what challenges you is going to change. So if day 1 you're lifting 10 pounds and then in day 180 you're lifting 10 pounds, I guarantee it's not challenging you anymore. Now, that's not to say you have to have every weight available to you. Maybe you do a little bit more time under tension, maybe you change your rep load, maybe you change your like the concentric portion versus the eccentric portion, things like that. Change up the ratio so that you're continuing to get that external stimuli on the muscle. But so, there's a lot of strength training programs around, things like that. Obviously, I train at Madabolic, so that's a great one. One thing that
for my audience, so tell me a little bit
okay.
more about who you are and like how we connected.
Okay, I totally just jumped all that. So
I love it.
all right. So my name is Erin Sengel. I'm a family nurse practitioner. My subspecialty is in lifestyle medicine. So we use nutrition, physical activity, stress mitigation and management, and sleep medicine and mindfulness as our first line of defense for disease processes and lifestyle processes, and then medication as our second line. So that said, if you came to me and said, oh, I've just got, crap sleep, rather than just prescribing you trazodone, we'd go through sleep hygiene, things like that. If we do need the medication, great. However, we will see if there's lifestyle interventions that we can do. So that's my medical background. On the other side, I've been a personal trainer for a long time. I've always just been the athlete and things like that. Obviously, how I met you, I am a coach at Madabolic here in Alexandria, and we are like a strength training, functional fitness, athletic training gym. And that's, you overheard me talking to someone about pelvic floor and you thought, what? And so who just talks about pelvic floor? And so that was, kind of the birth of our relationship. And so one thing, again, I'm 42. I have not begun experiencing perimenopausal symptoms. However, they could come tomorrow. Who knows? So however, again, as I get more into this age myself, and then my clients and my patients, I'm really delving into all this research. And so one thing about, places like Madabolic, something that also is a risk to us as we age and we go through this period is the increased risk of osteoporosis. And so we need that, for lack of better terms, sort of impact training on the bones and the muscles to help prevent against osteoporosis. Strength training is the number one preventative thing we can do for osteoporosis as females. And so, that includes, when I say impact training, some people are like, oh, my knees, I can't jump. I don't mean just that. I mean like pushing off a wall, something like that, holding a plank against a wall, pushing off and catching yourself, stepping firmly up on a box, stepping back down. That's impact training without jumping. So, I feel like sometimes people get disheartened when they think I'm too far gone, or I can't do it because of my knees, or this or that. There's always a way to implement training to meet you where you are,
And the
So,
piece that I kind of step in for is like, okay, if estrogen loss and estrogen changes are at the root of these bone changes, these muscle changes, this insulin resistance, then
mhm.
we give you a little bit of estrogen, right? Like, how
Yeah,
about give you the hormones that are causing all of this dysfunction and all of this chaos? And so then when we do that, and then we add metabolic training
yeah,
on top of, and then we do all of these lifestyle managements, then we
yeah,
really look at like preservation of not only your life, but also your livelihood, right? Like you can work for
yeah.
longer, you can live longer if you're not having all of these side effects of hormone loss and the cascade of things that happen after. So
I know
it's definitely
it's a great compliment, and it's really remarkable. And I mean, thank goodness we have female, providers in the healthcare world, today and stuff like that. And they're really making changes. But like, I mean, I forgot what the statistics are, but it's like 12% of medical providers get, 2 hours of menopausal training during their medical career. And those 2 hours are more like menopause from a physiological state, like, estrogen goes down, progesterone goes down there, and it's just like, it's by no means as preservation of quality of life. And, in menopause, like, one, it's a dumb definition because menopause is literally a moment in time when your period stops, but you've been having symptoms for 10 years.
years. Yeah. If you're a woman of color, right? So it's like I
Oh,
and now somebody believes me because it's been a year without a period. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
no.
So
And it's been so easily masked too, because the amount of, and again, I should know the exact statistics, but it's like the number of women that were giving SSRIs or antidepressants because it's like, oh, you're just anxious, you're just stressed, or things like that, or just deal with it. And um
I ain't got no progesterone. Like, because I can't, like, yeah.
it's mind-boggling. And then also just the fact that we think this is our lot in life and we have to grin and bear it. It's the same when people have horrendous periods and they're like, well, I'm a woman, this is what I deserve. And it's like, what? But now in this upcoming sort of classes of medical students and stuff, they're spending a lot more time on this. And the women coming up through the ranks, they're saying like, I'm not going to be without estrogen.
Here,
And so it's like, again, because I speak to women that are 55 and, they want estrogen now. And I want to hug them because it's like, you should have had estrogen, you know, 10 years ago or something like that.
right? So like those 55, 65-year-old women who are like, okay, have I missed the boat? The answer is we need to have a nuanced discussion
Yeah.
and benefits. And we know the risk of hormone loss,
Yeah.
right? But we don't hear about it. We hear about like hormones are so scary and they're going to cause cancer and blood clots and all of these things. But nobody tells you that your hormone loss is causing your cholesterol to increase. It's causing your heart disease risk to increase. It's
Yeah.
gain weight. It's causing you to have osteoporosis in the first place. So I think we do a disservice by not really telling the
Yeah.
true ramifications of hormone loss in perimenopause and menopause.
And the thing is too is it's so nuanced, but and people hear the word cancer and it's scary, and I get it. I've lost family members to cancer. It's a scary word. But when we look at the general population versus the population on estrogen treatment, it's quite similar, the risk of breast cancer to the general population to those treated with estrogen. The other thing too, the number one killer of men and women is heart disease. And so like you're saying, without estrogen, you have a vast increase in your risk of heart disease. And then what is our number one cost or cause of mortality and morbidity and mortality in the elderly population? That's slips and falls and hip breaks.
UTIs. Guess what? All of those are caused by hormone. So when I tell someone, I'm like, listen, even if you are 65 plus and you're
Mhm.
not for systemic hormone replacement therapy, if I can give you local
Yeah,
hormones to your bladder and I can prevent you from waking up all night long to pee, then I can save your life, because maybe you won't have that hip fracture,
yep,
right?
yep,
Or I can save your quality of life so you're not tied to the bathroom, so you can
yep,
enjoy, your grandkids' wedding and do all these things that you want to do because you're not leaking,
yeah,
because that is all hormone loss. So it's definitely like there is a hormone delivery system for
yep,
everyone, right?
yep.
It might always be systemic hormones, but there are definitely things that we can do to help some of these deleterious effects of hormone loss.
Yeah, and we know too, yeah, like you're talking about, there's systems of delivery. So we don't have to do systemic or oral. We have transdermal, we have vaginal, we have localized. And, when we go those other routes, we're missing, the effects of the liver. We're decreasing the risk of clots, things like that. So you can mitigate. And it's very new, just like all of our medications. It's very nuanced. I'm not going to give you and I the same thing. We, could have a different mode of delivery. We could, have obviously different levels, whatever it is, but it is very nuanced. But going back to like sarcopenia and things like that, we also like this idea that your fit years are in your teens is just mind boggling to me. I'm so glad that we're kind of coming past these sort of archaic ideas. Now with the advent of Instagram, things like that, I mean, we see 80 and 70-year-olds that we can see can put on major muscle mass in that eighth decade of life, which is really encouraging. And then again, it's just like, it's such quality of life. Like, you think back to your grandparents or your great grandparents, and it was sitting in Lazy Boy watching Wheel of Fortune. And it's like, now that idea is just mind boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's crazy. And so now it's like, no, you can be 80 and running that marathon or hiking that mountain or, getting that, one max rep squat, whatever it is.
I don't want to be a marathon. I would like to be on the beach. I would like to be walking on a sandy beach at 80. Maybe
Yeah.
that, but I'm not the athlete, right? That's
But
you. So,
you're going to be walking on that beach without a walker.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So much. And I did want to talk to you about sarcopenia, because a lot of the insulin resistance happens because of hormone loss, right? So then we have that buildup of visceral fat around our abdomens. And so a lot of perimenopausal women are seeing me for weight loss medications,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're, Jenna, I have this 10, 15, 20 pounds since perimenopause. I have not been able to lose it. And we have some, good results with the GLP-1s. But I'm always telling them, hey, one, we have to optimize your hormones, because
Yep.
if you get off this medication, the same, background that caused you to need it will still be there if we don't optimize it. And then two, whenever you have rapid weight loss, you also have muscle loss.
Yeah.
So you end up being worse off if you stop these medications, and now you have less muscle mass because you've lost weight, right? But you've also lost muscle.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very excited about the partnership that we've been able to work out with Madabolic for my hormone replacement clients and my weight loss medication
Yeah.
clients, that we can build that muscle, so that if you are going to do these GLP-1 medications, we're not just leaving you hanging and
Mm-hmm.
literally sending you off to lose all your muscle, right? Like
Yeah.
now, we have this relationship where you can work out with Erin at Madabolic to start to build some muscle, so that if we get you off of these medications, you're not worse off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And like you're talking about with the GLP-1s, the rapid weight loss, things like that, it's weight loss. It is not fat loss. And so we do have to realize that when we talk about losing weight, people want to lose fat. We do not want to lose weight. And so, maintaining that muscle mass and for longevity, things like that. But sarcopenia is becoming a real issue now with this advent of the GLP-1s, because most people that go on them did not already have, maybe a strength training regimen already in place. And so then now with all that weight loss, they're kind of not worse off, but they're in a deficit that they weren't before. And so you know, implementing that in, is great. Like you talked and touched on, like the more lean muscle mass we have, the better insulin, sensitivity we have, the better blood glucose control we have. And what do those two things do to us also when we have just either high glucose all the time or just rapid fluctuations, things like that, uncontrollable blood glucose? That's also a cortisol state.
Yeah.
And so this idea of just chronic inflammation. I mean, even if to the layperson, if you said, "Hey, would you like to be chronically inflamed, or do you think that negatively impacts your health?" I think everyone would agree. Even the layest of lay people would be like, "That doesn't sound right." So, like, getting us out of that cortisol state is so imperative, and like that is something that the weight training can help you with, just sort of inherently without you even thinking about it. It's doing the work to help you control those glucose levels and improve your insulin sensitivity.
Think
And
that, like, now that your cortisol is managed better, you won't want to binge as much, right? You will be able to get better sleep so that you can have more energy, so that you can work out the next day, so that you can keep that momentum and keep that movement going.
yeah,
So it's so interconnected. Like, we
oh
are
yeah,
a functioning system. We're not just these silos of organs in the way that we are traditionally treated and taught.
yeah, I know. It's like if someone comes to me for weight loss, like there's no way we're going down that journey without touching on your sleep. Because if you think that you're going to be, burning your candle at both ends and and putting in the work at the gym and with your diet and your stress is through the roof and your sleep is crap. Like, I don't care how long you're at the gym. I don't care what your diet is. It's not going to happen because again, we come back to that cortisol state and then we add in, again, this is a time when our hormones are really out of whack. Now we're also throwing in the hormones of like ghrelin and leptin. It's like you're going to be craving those sugary foods. Your ghrelin, your hunger hormone is going to be through the roof. Your leptin, your satiation hormone, it's nowhere to be found. Yeah, it's like, who was that?
Yeah.
And so, again, like the GLP-1s and getting that weight loss, like we do have to think about the other hormones. And we do, again, like you said, think about the body as a system. And weight loss is great. I'm so thrilled that there's practitioners like you out there that aren't just like, here's your weight loss med, I'll see you later. Because weight loss in and of itself isn't always a positive. It needs to happen in a system and it needs to be addressed with the other facets of life, because you can be walking around skinny and just feel like you've been run over by a truck. You can be, I mean, it's like you see the women that are all hunched over and they're little bitty. It's like they're skinny, but they're cachectic. They look like a skeleton. It's
Sclerosis, they about to break a hip.
yeah. It's like, well, that's neat that you're in a size 2 jeans, but you look horrible and you probably feel even worse?
Function,
Yeah.
right? Like, can you pick up your grandchild? Can
Yeah.
you carry your groceries independently? Like, how are you functioning in the world if you don't have any muscle, if you just are a cloth rack, right? Like, you just
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's impossible. So yeah, I'm thrilled because I think, obviously people kind of got on these GLP-1s real quickly and we did not have I think even to the pharmaceutical companies that made them, they like didn't think there was going to be this explosion. And so I think people were just kind of prescribing them hand over foot and we didn't realize. And so like now we have this new diagnoses of obese sarcopenia. And it's these people on the GLP-1s that have lost so much muscle mass. And so now they're sarcopenic and it's like now we're realizing we've got to do it in a system. We've got to introduce our hormones, our GLP-1s, everything has to be in this system. We cannot treat them as separate categories that have no relevance to the other parts of our body.
Mhm.
It truly is. So like I am glad that there's more providers like you and that also as a medical system as a whole, we're beginning to get sort of a better grasp on this idea that we need a 360-degree treat you.
Because you're right, you're a full, thriving, hopefully, person.
Yeah.
I have to treat all of you, and so that's what makes my practice unique. Is that I have the opportunity to have comprehensive care in one setting.
Yeah.
So we can talk the weight managed, we can talk about the hormones, we can talk about building muscle, we can talk about like the other side effects of hormone loss, right? Like your skin and the melasma
Yeah.
and the beard that you have now, right? Like you can get it all in one setting. And I think that's really what is missing from healthcare is that when you practice in a way where it is not holistic, there are blinders that you just
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
address.
Yeah, I know. And it's I and it's there's just not one parameter of success. So when we think about estrogen therapy, or we think about GLP-1s, or we think about weightlifting or anything like that, we cannot judge our success on a single parameter. So like on the GLP-1s, just because you lost weight doesn't mean it's a success. Just because estrogen therapy, if you got rid of a hot flash, but everything else is bad. Like the weightlifting, just because now you can curl X amount of pounds, but you still have crap sleep. Like we can't evaluate anything in our health system by a singular parameter. I think that's a very archaic approach to this whole idea. So again, having these one-stop shops where you can truly, again, I always say the 360 degree treat the 360 degree of the human.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ideal. And luckily places like yours exist, like DiscovHER and things like that. And the unfortunate is that when you're confounded by the insurance system, that sometimes that's not as feasible. So, but we're getting
Yeah.
there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're working on it. We are cash pay practice for a reason. But what I have found is that there are plenty of uninsured and underinsured folks who are still needing
Yeah.
resources. And they're like, I'm willing to pay cash if I know I can come to you
Yeah.
and have a provider who's going to help me with all of these issues.
A
So,
1,000%.
yeah.
And quite frankly, too, if you pay your copay at the doctor, it's you see them for 7 minutes and they're on their computer that time. You come see you or you're with us for an hour. The copay versus what you pay us, it like if you multiplied your copay by the amount of minutes if you saw your doctor, it'd be the same.
And then you're not getting the results. So
Yeah.
you're paying this amount of money. And then also, what are you sacrificing, right? The
Yeah.
time of being healthy, right? Like the energy, the
Yeah.
sleep, all of the yummy benefits that you could have had off of just resetting with a provider like us. You're
Yeah.
losing because you're trying to, work within a system that is not designed to give you a transfer. It's not.
No, 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 no. I know moving towards this paradigm of well care is really cool, and I'm glad that we're seeing it in our active years, our practicing years. It's really cool, and I think more and more it's becoming the norm, and I think it's also becoming the expectation of our patients. You
Yep.
know, we're
Mm-hmm.
always going to have a need for that upper respiratory infection prescription. We're always going to need that. You know what I mean? Like that, whatever. But I think, yeah, the expectation now is like patients are expecting a conversation with their providers. They're expecting a back and forth, an education, a conversation of options, and a game plan versus just here's your script, see you later, and do what I say because I'm the expert kind of deal. I think they really are, and good for them. Like they are coming to expect that dynamic relationship between themselves and the provider, which is really cool to see. So,
In a dogmatic way, where it's like there's an authority telling you to do something. And
yeah,
I think that as millennials, I have been so excited to talk about millennial pause because we were born in a time where like we've always had access to knowledge.
yeah,
And so we're used to asking questions, to questioning authority, to using our voice, to amplifying, other people's voices. And so that is going to happen when it comes to like this menopause and
yeah,
perimenopause too. So, all the 40-year-olds that are knocking on the door of perimenopause, there is absolutely no way that you're going to go to your provider and accept like, oh, there's nothing I can do for you.
Oh, absolutely not. And I will be curious to, because obviously we only know what we know and we only know what's gone before us. We can only do studies on things that have happened. And so, the results are always, a look back kind of deal. We can't, we can hypothesize, but until we get results, it's stuff that's already happened. And it will be interesting to see, like you're talking about this millennial pause. It'll be interesting to see. I do not think our perimenopause and menopause will be that of our mothers, will not be that of our grandmothers. But, it's just like back in the, even women in their 70s, they're like, oh, once you have kids, you just pee yourself. And our generation is like, no, we have pelvic floor physical therapy, and it's not, again, ipso facto, like kids equals pee. It's like, what? Again, not their fault. It was, what was the common knowledge at that point. And so, we have emerging studies. There's still more to come out, but I'm going to be curious to see, and this goes back to the idea of sarcopenia, that the relationship of lean muscle mass at time of, like, say entering this stage, how that has effects on your menopausal symptoms. There's a small study that came out and they showed that basically there was a negative effect. So then saying that lean muscle mass was protective against intensity of menopausal symptoms. Obviously more studies need to come, but I'm going to be curious to see, like how that changes, if having that lean muscle mass on board, how important that is as you kind of go through that third decade of life and entering in your perimenopausal, having that as a protective. And seeing if that guards against some of these things we see. Will you have as big of an effect on, will there be as a big change in the cholesterol, the visceral fat, the blood pressure, things like that? Is there a way that we can sort of guard ourselves against this? There's no doubt about it. We're going through a hormonal change. It's coming. But are there things that we can do? It's just like, I wish every woman got, when we got pregnant, I wish we got a package that was like, here's your lactation consultant, here's people that specialize in postpartum depression, because you might have a 1, you might have a 10, but you're gonna have it, because like all this stuff. Like, I wish we just had these things that, here's your pelvic floor, everything like that, and just sort of had, here's your nipple cream, like all that stuff. Like, I wish we just got a package when we got pregnant. And
that's like
what's that?
Alpha. The work that the millennials put in during our phase, like Generation Alpha, will have a completely different
Yeah.
experience.
Oh, 1,000%. And so I feel like, so then maybe it's something that we can get, like a package, if you will, that once you are kind of at 35, if you aren't already, really become serious about having those preemptive conversations with your providers about the hormone replacement. If you aren't already serious about it, get really serious about getting on that lean muscle mass. If you aren't serious about it already, get very serious about mitigating your stress and cortisol levels. So it'll be very interesting to see. And again, as women of our generation begin to go through this stage, is there a way that we can set ourselves up for better odds, kind of deal? That'll be interesting.
For sure. And I think we will. And we also have to, say that Gen X and the generations before, it's not like they took it laying down.
No.
They just didn't, or really the accessibility to other people and community to be able to advocate in the way that we now have, because of our father. So even this conversation that we're able to have right now, like, our mothers, they just didn't have that connection in that community. So there was a voice. So shout out to TikTok and Instagram. And
I know. And it was something quite taboo, or something to sort of struggle through on your own. I mean, it was like, I know, it's like with the peeing after pregnancy, that was a very hush thing. It was an embarrassing thing. Moms giggled about it. No one talked about it. It was, just this embarrassing thing, that you had no power over. Whereas like now I shout from the rooftops, like, pelvic floor physical therapy, it's going to change your life. It's, if your male counterpart goes and gets knee surgery, he's walking out with a script for PT. He's walking out with an ice machine. He's walking out with his brace, his follow-up appointments, all this stuff. You walk out after, the same trauma to a muscle, after childbirth, and you walk out with a baby, like,
take care of.
That's it. Maybe a pump. I don't know. And it's just like, it's nuts. You get like a free pack of diapers and for the kid, and you get mattress pads for you, and that's it. So.
Okay, yes, I can sit down for a little bit, but like, when your pelvis is impacted, it affects breathing, pooping, peeing, sex, literally all of the most essential functions that happen to also be taboo are affected and impacted. And so then we're just left with like, okay, well, I can't even take a deep breath because my diaphragm won't relax. And so I'm, now I'm anxious because I can't catch my breath, and it's all connected. Now I'm paying now I'm constipated. Now I got hemorrhoids because I've been pushing
Yeah.
to cope with this constipation. I can't have sex with my partner, so maybe we should probably break up. You
Yeah.
know, like not relational. So yeah, truly, it is a, a revolution that is brewing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
No kidding. No kidding. Go us. Go all of us.
Yeah. This is great, Erin. I just want to thank you for hopping on, and us being able to introduce ourselves to each other's audiences. And I do want to announce that if you are a client and you sign up for the weight loss medications or programs, we call it the Metabolic Reset program here at Discover Health, then you get access to Madabolic for 5 days for free. So you use the code MADforHER. And I'm very, very excited to bring that to my audience. So,
And if anyone comes into Madabolic, first of all, 5 days for free. Worst case,
right.
nothing. Best case, everything. So it's like, it's free. Then make sure you can touch base with me. And then that way, so if there's any modifications you need, if there are questions you have, if there's anything nuanced towards you, I'm happy to walk you through that. It's a very welcoming space. We have all ages, all walks of life. It is wonderful. And so, yeah, please touch base with me as you come in. And that way we can make sure that your first time there is a true success, and that we can get you on this wonderful road. So,
And for all the metabolic girlies who are looking for support with
yeah.
hormones and health, please consider Discover Health. We have
Yes.
some really cool programs that we're working on, and we are offering exclusive discounts for metabolic members. So we'll be putting some cards in the gym so that you can pick them up and get discounts from everything from HRT to weight loss to laser hair removal.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's so good to see you, Erin, and I will see you at my next noon class.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.